Hitler's best and brightest are killing themselves in large numbers. These Einsatzkommandos who went into Russia, many of them simply cannot handle the reality of what they've done. So on January the 20th, 1942, a business conference is organized at a mansion south of Berlin near the Wannsee, which is one of the many lakes. Berlin's built basically in a swamp, and it's got swamps and lakes all around it. And Wannsee is a neighborhood in southern Berlin, and the Wannsee conference happens in this mansion that's still there. And it's like any other business conference. They've got agendas, and they've got carafes of water, and they've got snacks, and they've got luncheon. They've got little files for everyone to go through the agenda, and they've got aides to help the various administrators. And it's like any corporate retreat I've ever known about, except for the topic, which is, how do you deal with the Jews? Bullets cost money. The Chinese know that. That's why they charge the family of anyone who they execute for the price of the bullet. And there's a war on, and the Einsatzkommando method is not working. We need to build an assembly line of death. We need to move product to processing efficiently and maybe even profitably. Product to processing. That's it. So at the Wannsee conference, the basic method of exterminating the Jews is agreed upon. Hitler had already decided this, but how we're going to do it is we're going to try a variety of assembly line methods to move product to processing profitably. First off, at Chelmno in northern Poland, Jews are brought in groups of 10 or 15 or 20 out of the camps that they're in, and they're told, get in the back of that van. It's a panel truck. It's got no windows. And the Jews are like, okay. And they get in the back of the van. It's closed up. They drive around for a half hour or so. And when the van comes back, all the Jews are dead because the exhaust pipe has been shunted up into the cargo compartment, and the Jews asphyxiate and die of carbon monoxide poisoning. But there are engineering problems that need to be solved by guys with pocket protectors and slide rules. For example, the Jews are covered with their own waste because when a human being dies, the bladder and bowels empty. So, okay, we'll strip down the Jews first so that we only have to deal with their naked bodies. But still, they're falling down in it. It's disgusting. The capos, the Jews that we keep alive to handle the dead bodies of the other Jews, they're slipping and falling in this muck. There's got to be a better way. So somebody comes up with the idea that you still see in every pet store today. You have a metal grate, and the Jews stand on the metal grate. And that way their bodies fall onto the metal grate, but the waste that they're eliminating as they die and as they are dead goes down through the grate and is mostly not on the bodies. So it makes it easier for the capos, the Jews' slaves, to grab the dead Jews and shunt them out. But there's another problem. The Jews in their death throes are panicking, and there's a light bulb up there, and they're going, ah! And they're breaking the light bulb. How irritating. How inconvenient. So another engineer comes up with the idea of, why don't we put the light bulb beyond a metal grate? And that way it'll be harder for the Jews to just, as they're slapping and panicking, to damage the light bulb, because light bulbs cost money. Some of these vans even have windows painted on their exterior, and they have little loudspeakers attached to the vans. So as they drive around through the Polish countryside, the Polish peasants are working as slave laborers in the fields, and they look up and they see what looks like a van filled with Jews toasting each other with champagne cocktails and laughing. And they go, those Jews, they have it so good! Because the Nazis wanted to inculcate even more anti-Semitism into segments of the Polish population. But the Jews inside were being gassed to death. But it's wartime. and you're only killing 10 to 20 Jews at a time. You've got all these little engineering problems, and even then, it's just not efficient. Besides, the Nazis do not have a lot of oil or gasoline to drive around and kill Jews. It's inefficient. But then somebody remembers a purple crystalline substance, a chemical product called Zyklon B. Zyklon B is an insecticide. You pour water on Zyklon B, and the crystals suddenly emit this gas, and everything dies. Well, it works on bugs, and after all, the Nazis think Jews are Untermenschen, subhumans, so it should work on them. And they do some tests. And lo and behold, the Zyklon B, which is not gasoline or bullets or any other war-winning strategic material, is chosen as the preferred method to exterminate the human cancers of Judaism. So the Treblinka death camp is set up with this in mind. And the Treblinka death camp is a pure death camp. You've got a railroad station. You've got a small fenced-in area. Within the fenced-in area, there's sort of a gated area that leads to a building with a smokestack next to it, or nearby, and a little building attached. And you've got some quarters and barracks for the guards, and a few barn-like barracks for the Jewish slaves, the capos that are kept alive. But that's all. Railroad station, processing center, a few barracks for the people you need to run the processing center. So the Jews arrive. Again, men are separated from women. Men go in first. They go up through the camp gates, through that sort of long gateway. They're brought into the building. They're told to strip. They strip. And then they get haircuts because, they're going to be in the East. And, it's simple, haircut. But obviously they're going to be deloused. And they're going to be, checked for worms and other things like that. Because like all livestock, you want to make sure they're healthy. So this is all good. And then they're left in the chamber where they had their haircut, or in the chamber next to them where, they're going to be showered. The Zyklon B comes out and they're dead. What kind of person comes up with the idea of having a person's hair cut right before you're going to murder them en masse? Well, some clever Nazi engineer came up with that idea. And after the men done, they clean it up, and then the women go in, and their hair is cut. And then same thing happens to them, women and children, gone. Treblinka, living Jews go in through the gate, and they go out through the chimney. But the ultimate in processing facility is a little city in Eastern Europe called Auschwitz. Auschwitz-Birkenau, near Krakow in southern Poland. Because Auschwitz has it all. It's got a concentration camp to house massive numbers of Jews, to just house them. And as the Jews arrive for the concentration camp, they're often met, among other people, by a German doctor named Josef Mengele. And Mengele would handpick particular people that he wanted for, purposes. And often he would choose identical twins, because with identical twins, you've got people who are so alike, you can really have a good control group and a good experiment group, and you can compare the results, like when you replace their eye fluid with ammonia, or when you see exactly at what temperature a human being freezes to death, or exactly how much voltage a person can take before their heart explodes or before their nervous system shuts down, or what if you sewed together twins and basically produced Siamese twins that shared some organ functions? Could you create Siamese twins? I mean, I'm not joking. Mengele did medical experiments on living human beings, particularly twins, particularly young, children and adolescents, because they had the vitality to bounce back from things that would kill an older person because of shock. And that's in the concentration camp section. You've got the angel of death, Josef Mengele. And there are several people who survived his experiments. Mengele is believed to have escaped to Brazil after the war and lived a long and fruitful life until dying in the 1970s or 80s. Auschwitz-Birkenau also has other things, though, besides a concentration camp.